Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dad Whisperer. I'm your host, Dr. Michelle Watson, and I'm so honored week after week that you join me with willingness to learn new skills to be a better dad, which I believe leads to a greater impact that you have as fathers, which is to be the bridge to God as a father. Wow. I mean, what a powerful role that you as dads have, and a privilege and an honor and responsibility. In fact, I honestly can think of hardly a more honorable role that you could ever have as dads, which undergirds my desire to bring you relevant topics that support that goal, because I want to help dads become heroes, especially when it comes to the dad-daughter relationship. Well, let me review the template that I use each week. On your mark, get set, go, where you as dads picture yourself standing side by side, ready to run your fathering race, and I'm your coach on the side, cheering you on, giving you tips, and helping you reach the goal to be a better dad, dialed into your daughter's hearts and your sons. Dads tell me all the time, you know, this relates to my sons too. I say, I know, because it's about you changing and bringing all that you have to your kids' lives. So on your mark is the topic, get set. I fill it in with stories and stats, and then go is your practical way to put your love for your kids into action this week. So on your mark, the topic this week is learn to read her eyes. Learn to read her eyes. Now you may be wondering, what exactly does that mean? Learning to read her eyes. Well, have you ever heard phrases like, quote, the eyes tell the story? Or maybe you've heard a phrase that is, the eyes are the window to the soul. And we've all lived long enough, well, maybe I'm speaking of myself, to be aware that when we look into someone's eyes, we capture a snapshot of who that person is. Eyes are the most vulnerable part of the body because they expose the reality of what's going on deep inside. You know, whether it's happy or sad or angry, our eyes tell the story, and they reveal more of what's going on inside. I mean, speaking of eyes telling the story, I still remember, this is back in the early 80s, where my family, we did the pictures. I don't know if any of you had the church bulletins back then, or church books where everyone would get their picture taken, and then everyone would get a booklet of all the families in their church. And we did one of those as a family and always thought the picture was so great. We put it on our wall. And years later, once my mom had gotten into counseling and started dealing with a lot of her own trauma story, we look back at that picture and go, oh my goodness, Mom, your eyes look dead. There's flatlined. Like her mouth was smiling, but her eyes weren't. And at the time, we didn't notice it. But years later, we think, wow, your eyes told the story. And that's what I'm talking about here today is we can tell if someone's eyes, I call it, are smiling, or whether they're sparkling, whether they're hurting. And that's why I want you as dads today to enter into this conversation about learning how to be a better reader of your daughter's eyes, because they will tell you a lot of information if you get close enough to look. Well, I want to start right off the bat with teaching you something that I do in my counseling office that really works, that encourages those I'm talking with to open up even more. And I do this with both men and women, so that when I am talking with them, if I look in their eyes and see a little bit of water forming in their eyes, you can tell if you're, again, close enough to see that. Yes, I'm talking about tears. I immediately stop, and I will, whatever I'm saying, I will stop and just slow down, and I will say something like, it looks like you're feeling something. What's going on? That might be a way I'd say it, or I might say something like, it looks like there's some emotion there. You know, and I'm just noting it softly. You can hear the tone of my voice, not like, are you crying right now? Seriously. See, that's not the tone we want, right? Because when the emotion is there and someone stops to acknowledge it, what I find is that more comes pouring forward, comes pouring out, comes pouring forth, because I believe the tears tell a story, and the tears want to be heard. That's why they're coming up there. So typically, when I make a note of the emotion, more comes forward. And so I'm saying, dads, if you don't even have time to listen to the rest of this podcast, you can just stop right there and say, okay, I am going to note when my daughter cries. Could even be your wife or someone you know. I'm going to stop and just say, looks like something's going on there. What are you feeling? You know, you can say it any way that you want. So let me tell you, as we get set, I'm giving you stories and stats. I know you love those. Is I want to cite some research today that's going to validate you as men and have you feel less alone. Well, the first study I want to tell you about is in relation to men and eye contact that's conducted by a relationship expert by the name of Deborah Tannen. You may have read some of her books. And she says that men are mostly uncomfortable with face-to-face contact, especially gazing, that kind of eye contact. She says they're more apt, men are, to stand side by side when they speak. She states that men don't tend to look directly at each other because sometimes, she says, it can be construed as a challenge among men, whereas side-by-side positioning increases comfort level and eliminates any feeling of competition. So I wanted to just validate you guys today that if that's how you're wired, you can say, I'm not alone. Okay, I'm more comfortable with side-by-side relating than straight face-to-face eye contact. Okay, so that's why today I'm calling it Learn to Read Her Eyes, because this is a learning process if you want to learn how to better connect with your daughter's heart. Okay, so let me tell you, number 2, about another article I just read. It's from a few years ago. It was posted in Public Library of Science, PLOS, titled, It's Official, Men Can't Read Women's Emotions. How's that for a great title, right? Men can't read women's emotions. Now, in this study, they said men are traditionally thought to have more problems in understanding women as compared to understanding other men. Okay, you're saying, duh, right? We know that. But researchers in this study asked men to look at 36 pairs of eyes, half from men, half from women, and guess the emotion that went with those eyes. And the results showed, you're going to love this, men had twice as much trouble deciphering women's emotions from their eyes as compared to those of other men. That is a profound research result, wouldn't you say? So what they said is parts of the male brain tied to emotion did not activate as strongly when the men looked at other women's eyes. Wow. And they said men took longer and had more trouble correctly guessing emotion from women's eyes. In addition to all of that, the researchers said that part of the male brain linked to emotion was not as activated when men looked at women's eyes, indicating they're hardwired biologically to not understand what women feel. Okay, now you guys all have proof. Now you may go forward and say, okay, wait, Dr. Michelle said that men don't have a hardwiring for understanding women and reading them correctly by looking at their eyes. So I've got a free pass not to do it. No. Don't take this wrong or out of context, men. I am wanting to put that out there first to validate you, but to say, you know what? You can learn how to read your daughter's eyes if you're willing to learn. If you're willing to learn, right? So I don't believe that anyone is unable or incapable of learning, especially if their hearts are invested. I mean, I think of times, maybe you've seen this too, where you're out at a restaurant or at the mall and you see a daughter, quote, acting up or acting out, or a son, but you see a dad squat down and gently relate to his kid. Oh my goodness. I have times where I'm literally welling up with tears, speaking of that, where my eyes are telling the story in my heart, where I go, oh my goodness, you are an awesome dad. And I think men sometimes tell me that I did that when she was little, but now that she's older, it just doesn't work the same. She either yells at me or bites my head off and doesn't want me close. But I really believe that men who love their daughters really have a heads up on being able to learn this skill faster because you're invested in wanting to be the best dad you can be. Because the truth is that even by us having this conversation today, I believe you're heightening your awareness of how important it is to look in her eyes. Now, let me just share a third awesome study that I think you're going to appreciate that was done by the University of New Hampshire that relied on evaluating footage, 35 hours of the television show Cops. I'm sure you've heard of it. I looked up, it's its 30th season. Oh my goodness. What they found is that when a police officer holds eye contact with hysterical citizens, they actually called that holding eye contact gaze. So, okay, cool that I'm guessing that, especially back in the day, this was predominantly male police officers. I didn't read that, but I'm assuming that they called that gazing eye contact with a hysterical citizen. And what they discovered is that when a police officer holds eye contact like that, it's one of the most effective methods for calming a person down. And not only calming them down emotionally, but getting them to cooperate, keeping them from interfering with emergency workers, and gaining their compliance. Wow. If that works for cops, it's got to work for fathers of daughters, don't you think? So look at that. Police officers found that when they could look in the eyes of the person who was in distress and hold that gaze, right? So not just a quick look at them and look away kind of thing. It helped to calm the person down. Wow. Dads, you've got an action step to follow in the footsteps of other men that have gone before you, because I know that works for women cops too, but where you are able to learn from other police officers the importance of looking in the eyes of your daughter when she's distressed. Now, on the off chance, okay, now there's the statistics. Now I'm going to move into another area of just addressing this topic of learning to read your daughter's eyes is on the off chance that you may think that this whole eye contact thing is really not masculine. You're like, you know what? Women do it intuitively. It's too much work. I'm just going to keep it side by side, right? Hey, the study said that, Dr. Michelle. I'm like, well, why don't we look to Jesus just for a minute and see what he did in how he related to women? And the story that I want to share is from John 4, where Jesus was talking to a Samaritan woman. And we know that Samaritans were called like a mixed breed, and Jews did not associate with Samaritans back then. And they really looked down on that culture, right? And yet here's Jesus coming up to a woman at the well and asking her to draw water. And I read a Jewish saying that declares, for Jewish people, may I never set eyes on a Samaritan. That was a quote that they took to the bank. It wasn't we don't even want to interact with them. It's we don't even want to look at them. So even though this passage of scripture doesn't specifically say Jesus looked at her, to me it's implied in the dialogue because of how they continued to have the conversation going. And I think that as this woman went into town and said, Jesus told me everything about my life. He knows I've had 5 husbands. He knows that the man I'm with now, that I'm living with, isn't somebody I'm married to. She must not have felt any kind of judgment or criticism or rejection based on her story, because she went in and told everyone, this guy is awesome. And I'm saying, dads, what a model that you as dads can use about interacting with your daughters, especially like the woman at the well that is making decisions that aren't good for her. And you know that they're destructive, but that coming to her and giving eye contact to engage in conversation, learning to read her eyes, is going to help her know you love her, know you're with her, and that you are on her side. So if you are a father of a daughter who wants to grow with her through her developmental processes, then I want to give you a practical way today to meet her and to match her by reading her eyes. Now, that's one of the tools. I put tools in the toolbox in my book that's called Dad, Here's What I Really Need From You, a guide for connecting with your daughter's heart. So I have 15 tools, and one of them is this exact thing, learn to read her eyes. Now, today I have 2 parts to this learning to read her eyes process. The first is looking at her eyes. The second is looking into her eyes. So part 1, Dad, what do you see when you look at your daughter on it? Like this morning, if you saw her last night before bed, perhaps, when you looked at her, what information did you gather? Because if you're just thinking, I'm looking at her and then past her, you're going to miss an opportunity to actually see what's going on for her. I mean, can I be honest with you guys just for a minute? Is more often than not, in my 20 years of being a counselor, and I just counted it up, it's now 38 years where I've walked alongside girls, women in mentoring or counseling, youth ministry, those kinds of roles. I have not heard very many stories about how dads get close enough to look at them. Sadly, instead I hear more often than not, even from moms, that moms are usually the ones to report to dad how the daughter's doing. And I want to see that change. Do you know why? Because I know that your view of your daughter significantly, dramatically affects the way she sees herself. Your reflection of her is one of the most powerful mirrors she will ever have. So when you look at your daughter and she's close enough to see you looking at her, you are a mirror reflecting back to her an image of herself, just like a mirror in the bathroom on the walls. And you've heard me talk about messages on mirrors. That's another talk. You guys can go listen to it on iTunes or on my website, drmichellewatson.com. But today I'm talking about being a mirror in a way that you are actually looking in her eyes. And we all have unconscious thoughts, don't we, about what we think other people think of us, right? Whether positive or negative. And we tend to either go toward the person that we feel the positive, mirroring, looking at them, kind of dynamic. And then we retreat from those that we feel are a critical mirror. So Dad, let your daughter know what you see when you look at her, because it's a powerful gift that you give her. So when you look in her eyes, let's say on a given day, and she either, quote, got up on the wrong side of the bed, maybe it's that time of the month and she's really emotional, or she had a really hard day at school or at work, and you take a minute to just stop and look in her eyes and say, do you need a hug today? Or you just don't even ask a question. You just say, you look like you need a hug. You know, when you go up, because you've read her eyes, you've looked at her. Does that make sense? So we are saying, dads, as daughters, we are saying how you look at us matters. How you see us matters. And we need to hear what you think of us, not just what you think. What you feel about us, not just what you feel. We need to hear what your heart has inside of it, especially with those positive things. I know you've got to also discipline or speak into your daughter's life ways that she can better herself, but we need to hear the other side too. So dads, what do you really see when you look at her, right? That's the question. What do you really see that's even beyond the here and the now? Maybe you say, right now, I do not like what I see. But you're saying, you know what? I see a hurting girl, or I see a girl that needs grace today, or I see a young woman that could use, maybe $25 extra this week, just because I love her. I can see that she's really struggling, and that would bless her. Because if you say nothing, she'll interpret your silence as something lacking or absent in her. In other words, silence is deadly. Okay. So step number 1 in learning to read her eyes is that you look at her. Part number 2 is looking into her eyes. Okay, so they go together. So Dad, here's the question I would ask you. Do you spend more time getting close to the television to watch the game, catch all the stats, than you do getting close to your daughter? Like, think of her right as a television. Am I getting up close to watch the game, so to speak, so that I can report to my friends like the next day, wasn't that an awesome game, man? Did you catch the second quarter? Are you able to tell those kind of stories about your daughter? Wow, I got close enough to look at her and into her to be able to tell someone else what I witnessed, what I heard, what I saw. So just ask yourself that. Do I spend more time looking elsewhere than I do at her? Balance it out. So if you look into your daughter's eyes with true intent to learn about her, know about her, you will see who she really is, what she feels and thinks, even what she needs. And with practice, this really can happen. That's why I'm talking about this today. Yes, I know the research says men aren't hardwired, but like anything, I can tell you honestly, I'm not hardwired for numbers. I had to get a statistics tutor when I was in my doctoral program. I say I have holes on the left side of my brain, but I engage in activities that develop and strengthen that side of my brain so that I can grow. And that's what I'm challenging you guys to do. Well, listen to these words. This is from a 20-year-old college student who wrote to me. I had her write this down because she told it to me. I'm like, can you put this in writing so that I can quote you? About dynamics with her dad. She said, my dad has always had a problem with listening. I used to ask my mom why he didn't look at me when I would talk to him. I used to cry sometimes because I felt that he didn't really listen. See, because his eye contact wasn't there. That's what we do on Venus. We think you don't look at me, you're not really listening. But I get that you're saying it's really hard for me to maintain eye contact through intensity. Okay, look away, then look back, because now you're learning how important that is to your daughter. This 20-year-old went on to say, when my dad doesn't listen, it has a really big impact on me. She said, I think it is very important to look at people in the eyes and give them your attention when they're speaking to you. With my dad, I rarely get that. Wow, pretty heartbreaking, isn't it? Now, because I'm always learning about how to decode dads to daughters and daughters to dads, I would tell her, hun, let's look at the research. Some of this, you are misinterpreting his cues and his body language as being negative about you, and that isn't what that is. This is your dad's hard wiring. He's not rejecting you by not looking at you. And I would probably encourage her, say something. Say, Dad, come here. Come back. Look at me. Invite him. Use your voice to invite him to look at you. Let him know that matters to you, rather than just having expectations that don't get communicated. See, that's about growing. I love this verse in Matthew 6:22. Here's how it reads in the Message Bible, where Jesus says, your eyes are a window into your body. If you open your eyes wide in wonder and belief, your body fills up with light. If you live squinty-eyed in greed and distrust, your body is a dank cellar. Oh my goodness, how's that? Let me read that again. If you live squinty-eyed in greed and distrust, your body is a dank cellar. And I love this last way that Jesus put it. At least this isn't the exact Greek, but this is in the Message. If you pull the blinds on your windows, what a dark life you will have. Did you catch that? Your eyes are the window into your body. And if you pull the blinds on your windows, which is saying on your eyes, what a dark life you will have. So do you hear how Jesus is essentially saying your eyes are the window to your soul? And if you have your windows open, your eyes open in wide wonder and belief, then your whole life will fill up with light. I love that. Your whole life will fill up with light. So as a dad who's seeking to intentionally impact your daughter's life more than ever before, you have an opportunity to help her body fill up with light by looking into her beautiful eyes and reflecting a stance that affirms her worth. Do you know why this is so important, dads? Because as you gaze, okay, I'm using that word. I know it may not seem like a very male type of language. I gazed into her eyes. You know, that's what they put in romance novels or Hallmark movies, right? But hey, did you catch that that's a word in that police study that they said, when we maintain eye contact with our citizens who are in distress, we gaze at them, it calms them down. So dads, as you gaze into the eyes of your daughter, while tuning into the fact that there's a story behind her eyes, you will help open the blinds to the window of her heart. Thank you, Jesus, for Matthew 6 and for what you said there, because it's such a powerful way that dads can have an impact on their daughter's heart and lives in a positive way. Dads, be a light to her soul by engaging her eyes in meaningful conversation with yours. Number 3, watch, right? Stopping and looking, watch the essence of her true self open wider as you interact with her. You're going to watch that happen. You'll watch the difference. Because when I'm not quite to the go step, I'm going to get here in a minute. Look at her eyes when you look at hers. Watch whether they get bigger. Do they sparkle and smile? Are they looking down, which oftentimes can be shame? Is she looking angry? It's hard to look into angry eyes, but hey, think police officer. Look at those angry eyes, hold her gaze in your heart, even be praying over her silently. I pray, Holy Spirit, that you would come and touch her. That will have an impact on her. So now, okay, drum roll, go step. A way to put this into action this week, dads, your heart of love in wanting to learn to read her eyes, is I want you to take 6 minutes every day this week. Now you go, why not 6? I don't know. I just picked it at random because Jesus talked to the woman at the well and said, I know you've had 5 husbands and you're with one now. That's the 6th. I don't know. I just thought how cool it is that Jesus didn't leave that out. He could have said, you've been married 5 times and left it at that. But he said, I know what's going on now, and I want you to know that I'm tuned into the 6th guy. So I don't know. I just thought 6 minutes. Why not take 6 minutes a day this week, once a day, so that it becomes more routine, where you stop what you're doing and you look in your daughter's eyes, whether FaceTime or Skype if she's living afar, and challenge yourself to see if you can read her eyes and what they're saying. Listen to her, and for extra credit, try adding the words, "It looks like you're feeling emotion there. Looks like there's a lot of intensity there." How's that sound, dads? Just take time this week, 6 minutes a day for the next 7 days, to every day check in with your daughter and push yourself to look into her eyes longer than you're usually comfortable with. How's that sound? Well, today we've talked about on your mark, learn to read her eyes, get set. I've told you stories. I filled it in as you can reach her heart with the way that you look and read her eyes. So between today and next week, put that heart of love that you have for your daughters into action. You can go to my website at drmichellewatson.com, sign up for my Dad Daughter Friday blogs, get free resources. You can always go to iTunes where you can listen again and rate my show, The Dad Whisperer. So I'm Dr. Michelle Watson, The Dad Whisperer, signing off today and encouraging you as dads to get out there and put your heart of love for your daughters into action. Go Dads.